right, folks, let's rock and roll. So wanted to thank you all for joining the Industry Weapon and Samsung joint webinar here. And thank you very much for hopping on, taking a little bit of time out of the day. We won't take the full hour, so you'll get a little bit of time back. But brief introductions. My name is Ryan Barlow. Many of you know me. I'm the Director of Sales here at Industry Weapon, and really good to be presenting to all of you. And we also have a guest speaker today, Jason Young. And Jason, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ryan. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Young. I am one of our technical account managers as part of the Samsung Business Division, supporting basically all of our what we call Tier 1 and Tier 2 channel partners. I've been with Samsung for about 9 years, so appreciate the invitation to be a part of this today, Ryan.
Awesome, thanks. And yeah, we're happy to have you. So, you know, folks, just want to do a little bit of an introduction to kind of how this came about and our partnership with Samsung, and then we can really jump into the nitty-gritty and let Jason talk about some of the cool stuff that we've got going on, both from a technology perspective and a partnership perspective. So, you know, first and foremost, want to just let's scroll down here. So, you know, cover why Samsung. And you know, one of the interesting things about as we've seen this partnership unfold, one of the things that we always kind of saw happening, even though it took longer than we expected it to, was what we were calling the commoditization of the digital signage players. So slowly but surely, the technology was getting smaller and things were getting less expensive. And I mean, I remember back in the day that your average digital media player was $4,000, and you know, now you've got all sorts of options. But the interesting thing here is we wholly expected it to really start to get actually pulled into the display itself. And the problem originally was a lot of those low-cost, very inexpensive, tiny solutions came from either questionable parts from a manufacturing perspective, where you know, they would break if you would plug them into the TV, and ultimately we just couldn't put the stamp on it. And so lo and behold, Samsung comes out with the smart signage platform with their system-on-a-chip technology, and proves that with a reliable manufacturer that you can actually get quality digital signage that's actually built into the display. So, you know, super excited about that, but I won't steal any more of Jason's thunder, and I'll let him kind of talk a little bit about, you know, the smart signage platform and how it came to be and all that good stuff. So, Jason, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, and Ryan does a great introduction, and that's really where we were 2.5 years ago when Samsung launched the smart signage platform. You know, we saw that commoditization happening, and Samsung's held a #1 market share position within this large display category for the better part of 5 or 6 years now consecutively. And when you sit in that position, you have a lot of people that are trying to take it from you, but you also have a lot of people looking at you as the industry leader and where are things going and what's the next best thing, if you will. If any of you guys had the opportunity to attend InfoComm, you know, maybe you saw some of that stuff that we had in our booth. But, you know, when we started looking at that pivotal moment in IT where technology is advancing, price is eroding, you know, how do we continue to, again, hold that market share position? How do we continue to innovate and lead the market? And that's where the smart signage platform came from. Samsung has a tremendous legacy in the component business, component manufacturing, chip manufacturing. So, you know, we looked at that and said, what better opportunity here than to take the industry-leading displays and leverage the Samsung component piece, put together our media player, and really all the pieces of that system-on-a-chip media player are Samsung components outside of the video processor. So there's a high level of quality that's maintained. And really, this system-on-a-chip or a smart signage platform is truly embedded in the screen. It is not a slide-in module. It is not something that attaches to the back and plugs into the HDMI port. It truly is integrated into the system board within the panel. A lot of times, you know, we hear, I don't want this embedded, you know, thing in my screen, because if that goes down, then the screen goes down. and I'll probably touch on that here in a little bit. But the failure rate on this, again, we've had this out 2.5 years. I've yet to hear of one media player failing. So reliability is critical here. But really where we were at when we launched this 2.5 years ago was this point of everybody kind of wanting to take advantage of what digital signage could offer, but there was really no easy way to do it. Once people kind of started digging into it, there were all these moving parts and these different layers of the solution and the technology that they quickly shied away from it because it was just too overwhelming. It was too time-consuming from a human resources standpoint, where they were going to have to dedicate a team of people to support this infrastructure, and it just shied a lot of people away. And so we figured, you know, if there's a way that we can leverage our manufacturing prowess and come up with a solution that allows the vast majority of the market to take advantage of a digital signage solution that is affordable but yet very powerful, because that's where the trade-offs are coming. If the customer didn't have necessarily a large budget, then the overall solution suffered because they were skimping where they could, which meant either subpar hardware components or an application that really wasn't fit for what they needed. So the Smart Signage platform really does provide that ease of installation. It can be as simple as a power cord, and then you connect via Wi-Fi, or a power cord and an RJ45 cable, and that's the extent of the installation outside of hanging it on a wall mount. When you look at, I kind of touched on the maintenance piece from a failure standpoint, but the best part here is that it's all solid state technology, so there's no spinning disk, moving pieces, so the reliability is extremely high. But it's also covered under our standard 3-year on-site warranty. So if there ever was an issue with the media player or the screen in general, Samsung takes care of that on-site for 3 years. So you can rest assured that it's going to be easy to maintain. And then from a content management standpoint, this is where partners like Industry Weapon can truly take advantage of this platform, because Samsung makes tremendous hardware. And when I first heard about the Smart Signage platform coming to market, I was really excited because it was going to allow us to leverage that hardware manufacturing capabilities that we have within Samsung and partner up with some tremendous software partners that know the software industry inside and out. They know digital signage. They know what customers need. They have the support, all those aspects. And so this was going to be the best of both worlds, where we're going to kind of bring these two sides together to the betterment of the industry as a whole, but then ultimately customers as well. And so content management can be as simple, and I'm not going to, Ryan will dive into this towards the end in terms of how the Industry Weapon application, operates. But basically, whether it, be most of the partners that we work with, including Industry Weapon, are cloud-based solutions. So you don't have to be tied to, a physical server in the data center, or, in some instances, it was the admin's PC that was controlling a digital signage network. You can really manage these networks and these devices from anywhere you have internet access. So it really makes that ease of use so much more evident. And I kind of touched on the human resources piece, where by kind of removing some of those obstacles or those pain points within a solution, it doesn't require the number of people to maintain it from a hardware standpoint. And with with a partner like Industry Weapon on the application side, you don't need a whole team of developers and graphic designers and things like that. So it truly gives customers the ability to leverage an extremely powerful solution without having to deploy a whole army to do it. Brian, if you want to go ahead and jump to the next slide. So I always like to qualify this first bullet point, because Samsung is very aware that the Smart Signage platform does not fit every single customer need on the market today. So there absolutely still is going to be certain projects, certain needs where that external PC media player may be required. Samsung still sells Windows-based media players as well for those projects that need that extra horsepower. But for those that don't need that, which what we're seeing here is the Smart Signage platform can actually address a good majority of the market with what it can offer. we kind of take that, we have the ability to take that piece out of the equation. From a configuration standpoint, like I mentioned, setting it up is literally power and network access. Once you've done that, the applications then look to the control, look to the administrative application, and once those two sides connect, you can have content on screen in less than 5 minutes. So it's extremely simple and easy to use. I mentioned the embedded Wi-Fi piece, so where there's places where you may not necessarily have a network drop, but you've got a power outlet, plug in a panel, connect up to Wi-Fi, and you're good. You're good to go. The nice thing is that these applications don't stream. So with the onboard storage now, all the mainstream panels within Samsung are going to have 8 gigs of native storage, with 2 of that being used by the operating system. So you got 6 gigs of storage capacity that you can take advantage of. So some customers are hesitant to leverage or to utilize a wireless network as the backbone for their digital signage, solution. A couple years ago, I was probably in that same camp, but we've got some really reliable solutions now, especially with the technologies that we have embedded, that and with the whole ability to once applications move from streaming to this kind of set up and push everything to the onboard storage, it makes that so much easier to use, basically. And then when you look at, and we've actually got a slide, I think it's 2 or 3 more in, that really kind of, Samsung actually did a total cost of ownership analysis, and we've got a white paper on it, and Ryan actually has sent it to him when we did this, the Tuesday edition, and so he'll be able to make that available to anybody that may want to see that. But when you start removing pieces from the equation from a hardware standpoint, that's an easy win in terms of reducing costs. But then also with the ease of use from the software piece, you don't have that human resource overhead either. So there is a very good, TCO saving story that goes along with the Smart Signage platform as well. Go ahead to the next one, Ryan. So as I mentioned, we launched this 2.5 years ago. So 2013 was our Gen 1 Smart Signage platform media player. And nobody within Samsung will admit it, but we all knew it, that when we launched, we knew there was, I don't want to say some challenges with it, but there were some certain specs that were okay, but we knew for this thing to really take off, needed to be better. And after a few months on market, that's really what the customers were telling us as well, was basically, hey, we love this concept of the Smart Signage platform. We love where Samsung's taking this industry. But, anytime, you have those conversations, there's always that, that but statement. But they basically said, hey, it needs more processing power, and we need to have the ability to expand storage. And so, we kind of took that, voice of customer within Samsung is very important. So we took that feedback to our R&D team and came out with the 2nd generation, which we launched in 2014. And so we addressed those 2 main concerns. The 1st generation was a dual-core processor. We upped it to a quad-core. We added a 0.5 gig of RAM to give it a little bit more juice behind the processor. And then we've also added an SD card slot for expanded storage. So customers now can put in a 64 gig SD card into the panel and expand that storage beyond the 6 gigs of usable space. And then again, I've kind of touched on the built-in Wi-Fi piece a couple of times. So being able to leverage that with the 1st gen, it had to be hardwired. And so, you could use a Wi-Fi adapter dongle thing, but, it wasn't, most customers don't like doing that. They've really taken a hold of the embedded piece. So the built-in Wi-Fi is definitely something that can be leveraged as well. Go ahead and jump to the next one, Ron. Yeah, so this is the TCO story I was telling you about. So this was done where, you look at a typical digital signage solution, and it's kind of the whole, picture kind of an iceberg where what you see on the surface is really only about 10% of what it is. And so all those other pieces behind that add up. And so we did a third-party study where we looked at kind of 3 different customer deployments. Basically, one that was kind of a small single office, 5 screens, to I think on the other end of the spectrum was a 10 office location with 10 panels per location. So it was a much more elaborate type of a deployment where you're dealing with different networking pieces and getting everything to kind of talk to each other. And really came up down that, after this kind of 3-year analysis of what we'll call the traditional versus the smart signage platform, those customers between those different scenarios could save anywhere from 24 to 31%, which, when you start talking big projects, that could be some significant dollars. So not only was it a, opportunity to kind of shift the technology in a way that was benefiting customers, even if, there was a zero, savings over going with smart signage platform versus the traditional, just the ease of use and kind of the ease of deployment aspect of it, would be far enough for customers to say it makes sense. But then when you can go and say, hey, not only is it easy to install and manage, you've got access to a great software partner here, and then, oh, by the way, we'll save you 24 to 31%, it makes it really hard for customers to argue at that point. But like I said, we've got the full white paper available for anybody on here that would want to see that, and it kind of goes into the details on how all those numbers were calculated. So it's not just a marketing slide to say, because if it was, then I don't think we would have come up with 31%, if you ask me. But that's a different story. So I don't know if that was my last one, Ryan, or if we got one more that I need to. This might be where. Okay. So I think this is kind of where
my favorite slide coming up.
Yeah, exactly. This is where we do the handshake, right? So as I mentioned kind of earlier on, the smart signage platform gave an opportunity for Samsung to produce top-tier hardware and really partner with partners in the software industry that know digital signage and that know software. And in working with Industry Weapon, first of all, the team is tremendous to work with, true experts within the digital signage space. But Industry Weapon provides a platform, and I may have touched on it earlier on, that is, I feel like I keep saying the best of both worlds, but it's truly an opportunity where you have a enterprise-level application when it comes down to features, functions, operations, what you can do with that platform with the ease of use of an application that, pretty much anybody can use and use to its fullest. It's not just, okay, I can do 3 or 4 things with it. And so, like I said, being with Samsung for 9 years, I've seen this category or this portfolio evolve over time to the point where, you can leverage the Industry Weapon application across, I think we're at about 10 different series of products and 13 different sizes that have the smart signage platform embedded, everything from a 10-inch screen to an 82-inch screen and everything in between. So being able to, to leverage that kind of a hardware portfolio and not have to have different applications for different areas of the business. And I know Ryan's going to touch on some of this when he gets into his piece, so likewise I didn't want to steal his thunder. But what I've seen over the past 2.5 years of having the smart signage platform on market, and especially working with the Industry Weapon team, is that, separately we have very strong and compelling stories, but you bring the two sides together and it's a force to be reckoned with. And it's really, when we go meet with partners or meet with customers hand in hand, it's a testament to the partnership on both sides that, that this isn't just kind of some fly-by-night thing, that we're both, and I know the Industry Weapon team has invested tremendous amounts of hours and dollars into development for this platform. So this wasn't just kind of a flip of the switch deal for the Industry Weapon team either. So The team, my team across the country, both on the channel side as well as our end user sales team, you know, are engaged in opportunities, you know, from one coast to the other. And it's, I think I've told Ryan this a few times now, we haven't even scratched the surface yet with what we're going to be able to do together. And with kind of, I think, officially launching things this week with this webinar series, I think there's going to be a lot more that we see kind of in the industry press as well about where we're going and what we're going to be doing. So, Ryan, if there's anything you wanted to add to that piece of the conversation, by all means.
No, I love it, and thank you so much for that. You know, we couldn't be more excited about the partnership, and I think you really hit the nail on the head with, you know, you bring such a strong platform that could only be brought to you, you know, by the software geeks here at Industry Weapon, and then we pair it with the hardware gurus on the Samsung side with a platform or from a hardware perspective that's really easier to deploy than it ever has been before. So, you know, extremely excited about that. But, you know, thank you, Jason. And, you know, I'll kind of take it from here and talk about a little bit from the software side, some of the benefits that we have on our end. So, you know, many of you know from using Industry Weapon today or using our software or working with it or even evaluating it, one of our strongest positions is being able to monitor the devices, and that's whether something goes down on the network or somebody takes a bat to the screen, you'll be the first to know. So our full real-time diagnostics down to the millisecond are fully available on the Samsung system on a chip platform. Same thing with the lower cost of ownership, and the beauty of that is you're pulling in the display and the media player into one SKU, one easily deployed device, but at the same time, you're reducing the cost because you're doing that. From a quick and easy install standpoint, this is something that I'd like to focus on just a little bit, because with our platform linking to the Samsung smart displays, you've got a couple of options. You can use the media bridge that you're already using today, which in a large-scale deployment makes a ton of sense, and still leverage that powerful infrastructure of that hub-and-spoke type deployment, so you only have a single outbound connection to the web, but meanwhile you're updating all of your Samsung displays from a content management perspective with the hub, which is, of course, our media bridge in that design. But then in terms of actually deploying it and how easy is it to get up and running, and I'll send everybody a video after this, but it's really just entering a URL that links right into the media bridge / command center into the Samsung setup, and it spins itself up and starts downloading content immediately. It still caches content, so from an offline playback perspective, you know, really, you know, just rock and roll from that perspective, and from vertical support, full 1080, things that you would expect from your standard digital signage platform, fully supported with Industry Weapon and Samsung. So from a functionality perspective, really great there. And then, you know, the thing that Jason mentioned that I do want to highlight too is that, you know, the Samsung system on a chip, it might not be the perfect fit from a hardware platform, but if you deploy with it, you can always add a media player day two, and Samsung actually makes their own set-top box, which we also support. So exciting stuff there too. So to go to the next slide there. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, hey, where do you see this having the most effect and impact? And I don't want to pigeonhole us into corporate communication, but it's such a no-brainer because it's ideal for lobby signage or, you know, outside conference rooms and things like that. So a couple of points here, and then, you know, Jason, even if you want to elaborate on the display size, but from our side, if you're just hanging a screen in a lobby and you need to get content up and running right away, it couldn't be easier. You don't need to worry about mounting a player. You don't need to worry about installing multiple pieces of hardware. And especially with some of their functionality in terms of connectivity to the network, it really makes it a no-brainer from an installation perspective. Now, the other side of corporate communications that we're particularly excited about is leveraging the product line from Samsung to really meet all sorts of different use cases in terms of size. Their display size range goes all the way from 10 inches all the way up into, you know, the stratosphere in terms of what you'd be looking to deploy, But from a meeting room standpoint and conference rooms, those tiny displays are perfect. In the past, it used to be you would have to use a tablet to get that sort of functionality. Now you can use one of these system-on-a-chip displays. It functions as a media player and a display in one. It's tiny and cost-effective as well. Last but not least, from some of the programs that we just have natively as part of our solution, the two that I'm really talking about primarily are Highlights, which you'll see a webinar on very soon, and then Basic Fundamentals, which many of you may be familiar with. Content management couldn't get any easier. So from Basic Fundamentals, for those of you that aren't aware, it gives you the wizard-like capability to be able to easily update content on the displays, primarily focused on CorpCom, but we also see a lot of our other customers adopt this too. So exciting stuff there, and being able to put anything from executive messaging or an HR blurb or anything like that right into the system. And what we actually do is we pair that with anchor content, so the things that we already natively subscribe to, like Associated Press, to help get the eyeballs up on the screen. But then we actually change content 3 times a day and on an 8-day rotation. So the morning doesn't look like the afternoon, and Monday doesn't look like Monday. And it really helps keep content fresh, but it can be managed and deployed in minutes. From the Highlights perspective, and just a little sneak preview to some of the new things that we're working on, we have the ability to consume your company's newsletters, handouts, notifications, and be able to automatically generate signage from that. So excited to brief you on that a little bit more as things flush out. So, you know, to kind of close this up, and Jason, I'll also give you a chance to highlight the displays just a tiny bit more in terms of the size range and all of that good stuff. But if you want to learn more, industryweapon.com/Samsung, and you can, of course, always email me, ryan@industryweapon.com, or give me a call. So, Jason, anything else you wanted to kind of elaborate on based on those last couple of slides there?
Yeah, sure. And you know, it's always tough because from the Samsung side, we always want to just throw, you know, all the slides we have at you and you know, have you choke on our roadmap and all that other stuff and speeds and feeds. And I really appreciate, you know, Ryan, you guys keeping this high level and really kind of planting the seeds on what the platform is. And really, you know, when I say, so, you know, Samsung kind of leads the industry, and I threw the number out there in terms of how many different models we have and sizes and things like that. There's really nobody on the market today that could compete in terms of breadth and depth of the solutions from a display standpoint that Samsung brings to market. And so many times in the past we've had to try and fit something into a customer's project that may or may not have been, you know, may have not been the right solution for them, but at the time it was really all we had. And, you know, in terms of what Ryan had kind of had on that last slide about, you know, the conference room, you know, the meeting rooms, where, you know, some, you know, customers had deployed consumer tablets. And really it was because there were no other options. And so now, you know, Samsung has a commercial display, 10-inch, looks very much like a tablet, but it is a 450-nit panel that has the Smart Signage platform embedded. And so being able to tap into a corporate calendaring system or, you know, Google Calendar, whatever it might be, to feed that information that already exists to that screen outside that conference room is again taking things to a whole nother level. So, you know, from a breadth and depth standpoint, you know, it's again, Samsung was the first to market with a true system-on-a-chip solution. Our only other competitor came to market just this past March. They launched here in the States at Digital Signage Expo, and so that, you know, they're 2 years behind the game, so to speak. So it's kind of interesting to watch other manufacturing partners. You know, I guess what is it? What they say? I guess you know, mimicking or copying is a form of best form of flattery. So when you lead the market, you know, you have that going on quite a bit. So, but it's like I said, you know, together as a partner between Samsung and Industry Weapon, we haven't scratched the surface yet with where we're going to be able to go and what we're going to be able to do, and providing the solutions that truly can be tailor-made to fit specific needs and specific projects that before never existed.
Awesome. And yeah, the only thing that I did neglect to mention are all of our integrations are actually fully supported on the Samsung platform. So particularly, and to highlight it from the conference room perspective, any meeting software is fine, but that goes across the board. So, and I know we've got a lot of different folks from a lot of different verticals, so whether we're integrating with a POS system, whether we're integrating with emergency alerts like E2 Campus or any of those different systems out there, that can fully automate, and it has no bearing on whether it's a Samsung display or not using this system on a chip technology. So, you know, you won't notice any difference from the industry weapon management solution. So I'll pause here and give you folks, if you want to type into the chat box, if you have any questions at all, we can address them one by one. So let me go ahead and get rid of this, and I see a couple of questions popping up here, but please keep firing away, and we'll get through these. So the first one is one for you, Jason, which is, do you have a comparison chart of how Samsung system or a smart signage platform differs from any other manufacturing offering?
So we can kind of approach this a couple different ways. You know, if we're talking true apples-to-apples comparison where, you know, we'd have to put the side-by-side comparison with another manufacturer that's leveraging the system on a chip technology, the only one on the market today, like I said, just launched in March, and that's LG. We do have, in fact, I actually put it together myself, some comparison information that kind of puts the LG solution, you know, spec to spec as best we could capture based on the information that was provided to the smart signage platform. As I mentioned, they're Gen 1, we're Gen 2. If I look at spec by spec, you know, they launched with the same kind of challenges we did in Gen 1. Limited horsepower, you know, not necessarily a very flexible solution. The other thing is where the smart signage platform is, and I'm just kind of giving you a few key differentiators. If there's a specific need for some additional information, connect with Ryan offline, and we'll definitely you know, connect one-on-one and provide the information we need to. But the other piece is the LG solution is based off of their WebOS or WebOS platform, which is their consumer TV platform. While the smart signage platform within Samsung does leverage some of our smart TV and hospitality TV programming, and that's a bad term, development, I guess you could say, the platform itself is actually a Linux-based media player and solution. So it's definitely a more open platform when it comes to development and you know, ease of use, you know, especially for partners like Industry Weapon to, as Ryan mentioned, to tap in other applications and other pieces that may be deployed within your environment that can then be tied into a digital signage system. So the Samsung platform makes that much easier to do. But again, we can address that, like I said, one-on-one. You want me to go ahead and take the second one as well?
Yeah, go ahead. That's a good one for you too.
So are these boards durable enough to tolerate a manufacturing environment? That's always a tough one to answer because there's a broad array of what that could mean. You know, these panels are commercial panels, with that being said, but they are also electronic components. So the issue of high heats, high humidity, or a significant amount of dust, you know, can pose a challenge. We do have a significant number of manufacturing customers that have Samsung screens deployed. Many of them just hang them on the wall. One of the customers I've worked with in the past is a company called Eastman Chemical out of Kingsport, Tennessee. And they produce some chemicals that Samsung actually uses in the glass on our screens and TVs. But you know, these are used in various parts of these chemical manufacturing plants, and most of them are kind of left as they are. They don't put any type of enclosure or cover, and that would be where I would go next. Is depending on the environment, and this is where, you know, the challenging part is no one customer project is the same as anybody else's. There's always elements that are unique to each customer, which is why I love the industry. But, you know, when we look at things based on the environmental standings, you know, there could be a need for just a simple enclosure to kind of prevent that to prevent the dust, or something that has climate control as well, where if we're dealing with high heat temperatures, or in some instances low temperatures, the ability to maintain the climate on the screen is an option as well through some sort of a third-party enclosure type device. But again, we do have solutions that have been deployed in various levels of manufacturing across the country, not being used with any type of enclosure or cover from that standpoint.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next one, who would we purchase the smart signage devices from, Samsung or Industry Weapons? So, and since many of you are our existing client base, the recommendation that I would have for you is use your existing channel that you have today. So,
Exactly.
we support over 190 channel partners worldwide today. And the folks that you're already buying through Industry Weapon, through today, I would go that route.
Absolutely. And then Samsung's 100% channel. So Samsung does not sell anything directly to end users. Everything we do flows through our reseller partners. So if you're already working with an IT reseller or integrator partner, you can source the Samsung screens directly from them as well.
Perfect. And then can you make a video wall with the smart signage device? You want to take that, or you want?
Well, I mean, it's probably going to be a piece from both of us. I mean, from a hardware standpoint, yes. The simple answer is yes. The platform can support video wall. Now, it comes down to the application side of it and what level of control and what how the wall operates. But in a very simplistic general answer, yes, the smart signage platform does support video wall, which is why it is embedded in not all of them, but some of our video wall screens.
Sure, and then to dovetail on top of that, the same limitations are going to apply with your standard displays. It's chiefly going to be the output. Typically, you're not necessarily going to use that embedded player, especially for some of the larger video walls, but that's where a perfect scenario of Samsung set-top box or something that can even support a higher resolution comes into play. So if you're looking for true one-to-one and like a 2x2 with essentially 4K resolution spread across all of them, that's when we rely on some of the hardware, but nothing prevents you from doing it with the displays at all.
Right. And in fact, I mentioned InfoComm earlier. If anybody was at InfoComm and saw the Samsung booth, we actually had a 4x4 wall that was running UHD content. Now, the content feed was coming from one of our set-top box media players, but it was one video out through DisplayPort into one screen, and then basically DisplayPort loop through, and as Ryan just mentioned, from just the display hardware standpoint, absolutely. So, taking the content feed from the Industry Weapon piece and funneling it in like that would be something that would absolutely be able to be done. So.
And then there's a question here. Will IW be able to leverage Samsung's video wall solutions in the future? We leverage them now. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email after this, and I'd love to talk. Can you recommend any models over others within the Samsung displays for use with Industry Weapon software? We were looking at the DM65Ds, and the displays can also be connected via LAN, correct? So actually, if you go to our website, industryweapon.com, and you take a look at the education and insights, and actually, I can even pull it up for you here.
While you're pulling that up, Ryan, I'll go ahead and address kind of the model request question that was part of that. And in fact, you may be addressing it with what you're pulling up here, so I'll give you a second to.
No problem. So really, I mean, the short answer is any of the DB or the DM series are you're pretty rock solid with. Yep. But this is just Industry Weapon / Samsung. We've got some videos there. and then we've got our list of supported devices. So, you know, feel free to hop here, take a look, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, and from the model standpoint, what you'll start to see, especially now, if you're looking things up, we have made a transition. So the DM, or what we're calling our D series, so the DM65D, will be transitioning to the DM65E. And a quick story about our part numbers. So basically, the last letter of any part number you see within our digital signage family is going to denote the year of manufacturing. So D was 2014, E is 2015, F will be 2016 if we manufacture anything in 2016 for this category, and so on as time progresses. And so the question I've got a lot is, so what's the difference from the D to the E? And really, this conversation is extremely simple, because for the different series within the 2014 lineup, we had, some panels had 4 gigs of data storage, some had 6. I'm sorry, some had 8. It was 4 or 8. And then the operating system uses 2, so you either had 2 gigs or 4 gigs. And it was really just a couple of the higher end models that actually had the 8 gig native. And so what we've done is, and the other thing within the 2014 lineup was, Ryan mentioned the DB series, which was kind of our entry level of the mainstream family, if you will, did not have embedded Wi-Fi. And so the 2 changes within the E series is going to be all panels now, DB, DM, and DH, will all have 8 gigs of native storage. So again, 6 gigs usable space. And then all 3 of those series will also have embedded Wi-Fi. So really what it's going to come down to within those 3 series of products is going to be runtime and screen brightness. So that's going to be the deciding factor on kind of what you use over what. The DM series is probably what we sell the vast majority of all the time because it's a great product. It's rated at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you can run it nonstop, and it'll keep on keeping on. You know, the challenge we get into anything over 55 is our options start to limit. So 65, 75, 82, you're really only going to find that in the DM series anyway. So, you know, when you look at the alternatives to DM65, if the 65-inch screen is what you need, that's really going to be the only option you're going to have for that size within the smart signage platform with the embedded player.
Hey, Jason?
Yes.
Hey, this is Josh from Fort McDonald Casino. So I have several of the DM32Ds running now with touchscreen overlays, and they're fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's the whole piece we didn't get into in terms of interactive content and being able to, you know, and I appreciate you bringing that up because it's an opportunity for customers to really future-proof an investment where, you know, initial project specs may not require an interactive display, but down the road, you know, somebody's seen it somewhere or, you know, somebody sees something at a trade show and they're like, man, I wish we could do that. With the Samsung family of products, you simply purchase an overlay and put it on there, and now that screen has become interactive. So there's no need to go out and take a panel off the wall and buy an integrated panel, anything like that. It makes the solution so much easier. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm glad everything's working well.
It's rock solid.
Awesome. Next one looks pretty good for you too, Jason. The one about Linux and then past 8 gig in the future.
I don't.
You said Linux. Is it true Linux or Unix? Are there plans to expand storage past 8 gig at any time in the future?
So the Linux piece it actually is. I always throw this out there, and I never know if anybody believes me when I say it. It's kind of what we've been told and what's been communicated as is it's a modified Linux OS. So what we've done is we've taken the Linux kernel and stripped out a lot of things that we don't need within the smart signage platform, because really what's existing on our side is the APIs into, you know, to provide industry web the opportunity to do device management and getting information back from the screen to, you know, to the admin console on industry weapon side, so that way you can see what's happening and things like that. So it's a lot of times we start talking embedded media players and things like that. Customers begin to think that, okay, I can install an application here and it's going to work great, and that's really not the concept of what the Smart Signage platform is. While it is an embedded media player, the application, like Industry Weapon Solution, is specifically developed for that media player platform. So, it's and if there's a need for additional deep dive information, there's going to have to be an NDA involved and things like that, and we can get connected with the development team in terms of really what is in there and things like that. But they tend to not share that information even with us in the field. As far as expanding beyond 8 gigs of storage, I've seen no plans for expanding that as of right now. Given the SD card slot being in there and the ability to throw the card in, I think we'll see kind of how that plays out over the next year or so in terms of our customers leveraging that. Do we get a lot of feedback from customers, having to rely on that because the storage capacity is too much or not enough within the embedded screen? The nice thing is that Samsung is the leader in solid-state storage as well and flash storage. So if that need ever were to arise, and then it comes down to another component aspect. You start looking at all the different things of, okay, if we go beyond 8 gigs, does that require other things have to change within the media player, and what cost impact does that have? And because when we first launched the Smart Signage platform, customers were a little bit upset because they're like, well, we've got these screens, we didn't have media players, we've got screens now, they're going to have media players, I don't have a choice, and I got to pay for that, and I don't even need it. When in fact, when we launched it, Samsung absorbed about 90% of the cost of embedding that media player. And so the cost that was passed on to customers was very minimal at most, and in some instances we actually addressed that with very special pricing and things like that. So it remains to be seen. I think, like I said, over the next 12 to 18 months we'll see how much is being used by our customer base, and a lot of that feedback is going to be coming back from our software partners like Industry Weapon. They're a primary source of information back to our R&D team as well, because they hear a lot of times before we do on the hardware side. And one thing we've seen is that with the way things work is that the only content that's stored is really the content that's being used based on what was sent to the screen for that given time in terms of template, scheduling, things like that. So it's constantly changing. So it's one of those things where it never really just, like a traditional hard drive, just kind of stores stuff and continues to back up and back up. If you're pushing out more than 8 gigs at a time to each screen, then yeah, there'd be an issue. But as of right now, we've not heard the limitation. 2 was a little bit much, or was not enough, but I've not heard yet that having the 8 is not going to be enough. But we'll see.
Perfect. And there was a question here that you might be able to answer. Do these monitors have the ability to create an architectural video wall display? I did ask for just a little bit of clarification on that, but go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, and I'm going to question on the fact, you said it right there, was from we tend to say Mosaic, and we actually, I think, had our hand slapped at Infocom because I think Planar actually has Mosaic trademarked for some of their video wall solutions. But that's exactly where I was going. And absolutely, I mean, it's when it comes down to, and I like that term, architectural video wall. I'll have to, I hope whoever asked that doesn't mind if I share that with our marketing team, because I like that. But it really comes down to the displays can do anything they're told to do. They're the display at the end of the line. So from the architectural video wall displays or designs, that requires definitely some additional processing power that may not be able to necessarily be leveraged through the Smart Signage platform, but would require some sort of a true video wall application that could be leveraged to do that. So yes, I mean they absolutely do, given the application behind it can drive the content.
Perfect. And I think that's about it. So
I have a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
I currently have the a DB40D running on one of my slot end caps.
Okay.
I'm currently running a player over IP to that unit, from an encoder to a decoder to that unit. Well, is that capable of being its own standalone media player? I know it has some media player capabilities built into it, but I don't know how far I can push that monitor. You know what I mean?
What did and that's Josh, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what did you say the model was again?
It's a DB40D.
Yeah. Why don't we see if we can just get you spun up on that, and we can turn on a demo license for you guys, and you can play around with it.
So on the licenses for that, is that different than a media player license? Is the cost different because it's embedded in a TV, or?
Nope. It is exactly the same.
So I have available licenses, but the TV itself is capable of being its own media player, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I haven't tried it yet, but I know it's capable of doing something, but I don't know how far I could push it.
Correct.
Yeah. So and yeah, that's fully supported. So all we'll need to do, especially if you have available licenses, there's a little bit of a different configuration that you would do from a standard media player. So we can get you that documentation, and I'm also happy to have one of our smart guys reach out to you and walk you through it.
Okay, so is that just done in the media setup? Instead of pointing it to an HP player or whatever, I'm pointing it to a Samsung model number? Or?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So
okay.
there's a Samsung drop down in the player list, and then there is also in order to have the display, look at where it's going, that's how that would happen too. So you would just do something with the URL launcher. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. I might try that out.
Perfect.
Thank you.
No problem. And any other folks, burning questions, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, any of that? Yeah, feel free to speak up, put them into the box, whatever works for you. And if not, we'll give it just about 30 more seconds, maybe 10. 30's 30's a little ambitious, and I'll get impatient. But guys, thank you so much for attending our webinar today. And like I said before, we could not be happier with the Samsung team. They've been extremely supportive, extremely responsive, and we're very excited about our partnership. So please, if you need anything at all, if you have any other questions, Industry Weapon /Samsung is how to find it on our site, and you can also just navigate through the product list that I showed you. But if you have any questions for me, Ryan at industryweapon.com, and if you want me to put you in touch with Jason, I'm more than happy to do so. Jason, anything else?
No, I think we're good. I appreciate everybody's time this afternoon, and Ryan, again, thank you for the invitation to jump on here and share the partnership story. It's always an honor and a privilege to be able to do that, so I appreciate that.
Hey, you got it, and thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to our next month's webinar. So we'll be sending everybody the invite soon.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.